Right.
All right.
And we are live.
We're live.
Is it episode 8, Ponto?
It's episode 8. Episode 8 of TA Brews TV. And we've got one very insistent commenter named Tom Garvey who just loves his... It's not profanity, it's more just kind of, I guess, what, obscenities?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's borderline insane.
Are you? Tom, are you borderline insane?
Yes or no? Y for yes, N for no. Insane in the membrane. All right.
So, well, I guess it's a yes then. We'll go with that.
We'll go with that.
Anyway.
Episode 8.
What have you got today, Mark?
Well, since it's Halloween in a day or so, isn't it? Is it tomorrow? Yeah, it is tomorrow.
2 days.
2 days. Since it's Halloween, it's not the most exciting beer on the planet, and you probably can't technically call it craft by the strict definition anymore. But I have a Old Faithful Hobgoblin, which is a beer that both you and I know very well.
Very, very familiar with, maybe even too familiar, I would say.
Yeah, definitely a little bit too familiar. So what do you have, Ponto? What you got this week?
Keeping the theme with mythical creatures and the like, Thor's Hammer from Central City Brewing.
I like it. Another beer that, again, we both know.
Now, I will say this. Earlier today, I tried cracking one open.
Yeah.
And I must have spent, before cracking it open, about a few minutes at least, just trying to pry the friggin' the wax off. It's got a very nice goldy sort of waxy coating on the top, but it extended all the way over the top. So trying just to use a regular opener, which is crazy. Yeah. So what I've just done is I've done a very shoddy job of just knifing off the top there, so I'm not spending your precious time opening a beer.
You just hacked it to bits. Yeah, I like it. But it was quite comical watching you try and open the first one.
I bet it was. We were on Skype call before that, and I was just trying to give her a go. Yeah.
How long did it take you? About a good 5 minutes, I'd say.
5? No, okay, maybe about that.
Yeah.
That's a bit long. I might seem a bit less than intelligent, shall we say now.
Well, I'm all for quality control, with the beers and everything, but that might be
a bit extreme. Taking
freshness to its whole extra level.
I will say though, it's a very common thing with barley wines I've seen that have been bottled up.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not an uncommon thing. Just maybe the thickness might be an uncommon thing.
Yeah.
It's actually quite thick. I mean, it's about a 16th, in between 16th and 8th inch thick of wax. But anyway,
I've had a beer waxed like that before at the top, and it had, interestingly, instead of having a printed label on it, it just literally had a tied label on it. They were small batch beers produced in Cambridge. They were really good, actually. They were really good.
And if you're wondering why I'm smirking so much, the gentleman in question, Tom, is still posting some quite funny, if inappropriate, jokes down here, which if you were here live with us, it would be a great thing, perhaps, if you're doing that sort of thing.
Anyway, beer.
You want to crack on, Mark?
Beer. Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, I'll crack it open. Nice one.
Fantastic. Hobgoblin.
Halloween, Hobgoblin, all that stuff. So I should say, actually, Hobgoblin are based in Wychwood, not in Wychwood. They're Wychwood Brewery, and it's Hobgoblin, and they're based in Witney, which is in Oxfordshire, close to the Wychwood Forest. So they theme all their beers based on this ancient forest. They're mythical kind of creatures based on an old forest that kind of used to be there. There's some remnants left of it, but it doesn't really exist anymore. Hobgoblin actually have been around since probably the 80s, but there was a brewery on the site that they brew at for much longer than that, into the sort of Victorian era. They've been unfortunately bought out by a larger brewer called Marston's. They were based in Burton-upon-Trent. So they're owned by a bigger brewer now. They're technically still not actually probably still not really a craft brewer as such, but I still quite like their beers. And I don't think you should just disregard a brewer just because they've been bought out by somebody slightly bigger. Now, if you really think about it, I mean, a beer, if a beer's still brewed really well, but it's owned by a bigger brewer, does it really matter?
Well, I mean, I don't think as long as the quality stays consistent. I mean, that's the main thing for me. Flavor, quality, that sort of thing there. Of course, if we had Oz Clark, if any of you are familiar with Oz and James or that sort of series, Oz Clark would immediately say no and disregard anything towards the contrary of that. He's all about the very home, very small, very intimate sort of brewing processes. Whereas James he enjoyed that really that one scene where he's making Nuki Brown by the vat by press of a button.
Yeah, I mean, most of that's drank in America now, I think, and exported. Hardly any of it drank over here. And that is definitely beer on an industrial scale. And don't get me wrong, Hobgoblin is not produced on that scale. I just think definitely things have changed slightly. Whether or not the beer has changed, as I say, there are more exciting beers than this out there now, but I still think it's a fairly good go-to beer. And at £1.25 a bottle in the local supermarket, you really can't go wrong. I've been to the brewery. It is all still, as far as I understand, produced in Whitney. However, when it comes to their bottling process, they no longer bottle the beers on site. So I think the casks and everything still get done there, although that could be, I could be wrong there as well, but certainly some of the packaging does not happen at the brewery anymore. It gets put into some sort of vat or whatever, taken up to Burton-upon-Trent, and they use their bottling bank there. So does that change the beer at all over time? Possibly, that kind of shipping around and messing around with the beer, does it change? Quite possibly. The other thing that we should probably mention as well is that the cask version of the beer has dropped in strength over that period as well. So there are definitely some changes have happened. Whether or not they've affected the beer or not, I don't know. I stopped drinking it for quite a while because I moved on to other more, more niche beers that are produced on a smaller scale. My taste changed, my palate's changed. I've kind of come back to it. I'm like, does this taste the same, or is it my palate that's changed? I don't know. But anyway, I've yapped on enough about that for long enough. So shall I pour the beer?
Give it a go. Come on. That's what everyone's waiting for.
So lovely ruby colour. This is described as a traditional ruby ale, if you like. Lovely rich ruby colour. In fact, that looks slightly darker on camera than it really looks in real life. It's always difficult in this kind of light at this time of day, but you can see a slight red hue to it, I think. Yeah, a little bit there. Catch it a little bit there.
A little bit, yeah.
So aroma-wise, quite a lot of sort of biscuity caramel type malts, but also some citrus elements from the Styrian Golding hops that they use as well. Definitely quite a lot of that berry kind of element, maybe a little bit of chocolate on the aroma as well. Very sweet up front, actually. Again, a lot of that caramel kind of malt character that comes through from, I guess they use crystal malts in this. So an element of that kind of character coming through as well. Those Styrian Golding hops do build and then burst those slightly. But actually, the bitterness doesn't linger for too long. It does kind of dissipate into a smooth, quite a smooth finish, really. It's not particularly aggressive in its bitterness. It's fairly well balanced. There's a reasonable amount going in there on there in terms of the dark berry characters and the chocolate notes. But yeah, I mean, it's a fairly solid beer. I wouldn't describe it as the most exciting beer on the planet, and definitely I think the craft beer scene has moved on in terms of the boundaries have been pushed further since this beer, I think, really took the UK beer market by storm, and ultimately actually did really well as an export for quite a while in North America. I don't know whether it does so well now, but certainly for a while this was a very popular beer on both sides.
Now, does it still have a lot of those floral notes that we used to have in when we have the Dublin Crossing there?
I don't know about the floral notes. I mean, it's more elements of citrus from those Styrian Goldings hops that they use. I mean, Styrian Goldings is like a Goldings hop, which is a UK hop, almost on just supercharged almost. But it's not a British hop, actually. They're produced, I think they're a Czechoslovakian hop. I'm not. However, I almost don't want to say that because I'm not entirely certain. So let's just leave it at there, a slightly supercharged Goldings hop. So they're like the character of Goldings, that bright citrus flavor, only turned up a notch, if you like.
Yeah, that's a bit strange. So maybe it has changed in recipe then, because I do distinctly remember it was very floral at the time.
Maybe.
Unless that was just an export version or something of that nature. I'm not
sure.
Maybe.
Let me just remind myself what you would typically expect from a Goldings hop. I don't think... So we did a blog post on hops fairly recently, and I seem to remember that you would... I mean, it says whether you get some floralness. I guess maybe some light floralness there, but that's not untypical of British hops generally, is it? So, I mean, you kind of almost expect that kind of thing. I mean, it's fairly earthy as well. But, I mean, typically, just looking at my notes here on sort of Goldings hops generally, you could expect some delicate floral elements, but it wouldn't be the main character, I guess. But one of the main things that's described is kind of an earthy and spicy kind of element to them. And, having read that and then coming back to it, yeah, you could definitely say there was some spicy elements and some maybe light floral stuff going on in the background there, but whether or not it's at the forefront, yeah, possibly not.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. So, of course, you seek it out again. You drink it again.
Yeah, I come back to this as a regular everyday beer. It's not anything I drink as something special, but it's something that I come back to as a faithful regular beer that you can get at a reasonable price. You can get it anywhere in the country. In fact, you can get it in multiple countries across the globe, and it's a good go-to. It's a good go-to beer if you just want something fairly solid, not too expensive, not too complicated. You just want to chill out with a few beers, and there's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, I would.
Excellent. Well, let's move on to the Hammer of Thor itself. Actually, I gotta say, I quite like the logo they have there.
Yeah.
It's sort of a it's shaped like a hammer, but it's got all the bits that use that brew with the beer, the hops and the barley and all that.
Indeed.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I've always liked Thor's hammer when we used to have it at Central. So.
Yeah, interesting note on that. It's been about 8 months since they've last had it in stock there and carried it, but yet the brewery has many bottles of it in the actual brewery itself you can buy from. It's in the liquor store that Central City owns, which is literally right beside the actual pub. Yeah. And yet they say they can't get it in stock.
That sounds like BS. I guess maybe they have bottles historically that they're still selling in the but they probably brew it in batches maybe, and then they bottle a whole bunch, send it to the liquor store, but they don't necessarily actually have it on draft. Maybe.
Yeah, they probably don't have the kegs ready to go or something like that. So, but I mean, it does take a year, like a little over a year to make this, because it ages for 1 year fully before they release it.
Okay, maybe that's what something.
Yeah, it's matured for 1 year. You can actually see on the back of the bottle for 1 year, mahogany in color, barley wine. Yeah. So it doesn't say exactly what it's aged in, but I would venture a guess at probably an oak barrel of some sort. I mean, that's generally what you'd age in, of course. What else it would contain? Maybe they're new barrels.
Yep.
Anyway, on to the pour. It's got quite a nice, actually, woody color to it.
Yeah.
Like a deep wood. And I'm sure Tom is going to have a heyday. For anyone who's just joined in, there's a gentleman named Tom Garvey who's left and come back, and it's quite hilarious. The things he's been putting in the side there, maybe somewhat offensive to some point, but anyway, quite dark, sort of like a mahogany-ish type of wood stain there, even quite nice. It's bottle conditioned, so but it's. From what I can see, it's quite clear, actually. There's no real haze to speak of, but I'm sure in the bottom of the bottle, if I pour it all out, it'll be there somewhere.
Cool. Like it. So you could settle this beer, right?
Yeah, it's actually recommended that you sell it for about 5 years before you drink it.
So
it says up to 5 years. You can drink it now, of course, or sell it for 5 years. Of course, anywhere in between is also acceptable. It's totally up to you.
Unlike how I understood it with, say, something like Fuller's Vintage Ale, where it's something around 3 years is potentially a really good time to drink it. So they reckon a little bit longer then. But then I think it's a bit stronger, isn't it? What's the percentage on that?
It's somewhere around 9, 10, or 11 and a half,
okay.
actually.
So it's quite a bit stronger. Quite a bit stronger than Fuller's Vintage Ale, which I think is about 8.5, something like that.
Starts off as that, yeah. Who knows where it goes in 3 years, though?
Yeah. I don't think the alcohol goes up that much, but the hop character,
the flavors,
the hop character. One of the first things to go with beers over time is the hops subdue the character of those, so dies down. But then obviously other kind of flavors start to materialize as well. And the one that we had, that Fuller's Vintage Ale, the hop character wasn't there the same, but it almost became a bit brandy-like, if you remember.
Yeah, it was actually quite a bit thicker, just in general too. Just the viscosity of it, and then what we had, just to explain it, we had 3 different years of vintage ale. So we had one when we did probably 2010, I think we did this years ago now, many 2009 even. So we had a 2007, a 2008, and I think a 2009. I think we had the 3 years in succession there.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did the 3 in a row.
Yeah, and it was quite different going between each of them. The current year one is actually quite, comparatively anyway, it was quite sessionable. Like I could handle 1 or 2 of those, or I could handle like 2, maybe even 3 in a night. Whereas as you got down the line, it was like, okay, well, we got down, I think about half was kind of the limit for the 3-year aged one, just because it was so heavy in flavor and just in feeling. Yeah, it was quite interesting just to do that little experiment, just see what the different vintages do.
It's a shame I don't have any more of those stored away, because I think why didn't we document that opportunity that at all? I guess we were too busy. We were making music at the time, weren't we, or something? And,
we were.
It was just a bit of a side note. Was the beer?
It was a Christmas special sort of thing. We did.
Indeed. It was good though. We should do that again. We should sell her a few beers and do some more vertical tastings. But anyway, onto your comment.
Anyway, onto the beer. So smell is quite actually complex. Lots of dark fruits, figs, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of that, you have sort of dried fruit. So I guess sort of like raisins even. Yeah. You know, sort of smell you get from them. That's a very kind of syrupy sweet. Mm-hmm. It's got a bit of that in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a slight bit, I'd say maybe vanilla-y sort of smell.
Nice, yeah. Is it barrel aged in any way? Because that would...
It doesn't specifically say on what it is. And it's quite interesting just to kind of dive into this without knowing that, actually. For all I know, my imagination is getting carried away.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's got that quite sweet, dark, fruity sort of smell to it, and there's not really a lot of bitterness in the aroma anyway. Flavor-wise, it kind of just does this real impact. So I can't really smell the bitterness in or anything in the aroma, but there's a real tartness to it that makes your mouth kind of warm, kind of biting into a lemon almost.
Yeah.
And it coats your mouth quite a bit actually. So I mean, I think it goes along with what we were saying earlier about the aging process. Yeah. The hops tend to, the aroma tends to leave pretty quickly, and so I mean the aroma with the hops is pretty much gone with this, but you can definitely taste the hops in there, that real bitterness to it. And then the
is that bitterness coming more from the malt or from the hops? Do you think? I mean, if it's still fairly young, it could well be hop bitterness. But
yeah, I'm thinking it is a combination of both, of course, but I'm thinking the primary bit primarily it's coming from the hops. I mean, it is only a year age, this one here. So, I mean, it's not too long, and it's also been bottle conditioned, so it's fermenting slowly in little bits at a time within the bottle. Yeah. So, the malt character is a bit overridden though with that sort of dark fruity flavor, the figs and prunes and that sort of flavoring.
Right.
The coating in the mouth though is quite thick, and it lingers on for a little while anyway.
Right.
And yeah, it's actually surprising. Once you swallow it, it's actually pretty smooth. It gives this really sharp taste on the tongue, and it's really just all around your mouth sort of feel. But then actually when it goes into your throat, it sort of levels off, it seems.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
So yeah, overall it's a really good one. It's a relief to see that they're still making it, actually, because I was quite concerned for a while that they weren't, actually, given that there was nowhere to be found.
Yeah,
but
I did wonder that for a while, because I think I came back one year and they weren't doing it, were they? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, there was a time when they weren't doing it, but then again, that we were at the pub asking, and we didn't go to the brewery itself to ask. So it could have just been the brewery saying they don't do it anymore because they haven't received it for so long.
That's true. It's a really good winter warmer, isn't it? I mean, I just think it's perfect in the colder months, that sort of thing.
Oh, it's great. It's getting nice and chilly over here for, come end of October is usually pretty cold. And it's a nice one to warm you up through the night.
Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah, well, It sounds good. I know it's good. I've had it too, and it's smashing. So
yes,
cracking. Yeah, it's making me thirsty for Thor's Hammer. Actually, I might just have to fly over just to have Thor's Hammer.
I'll welcome you with open arms and an open bed.
You brought it up.
Pressure. Yeah, if you're coming just for a beer, no problem.
Oh dear, it's all going downhill.
That's what beer does, isn't it?
Something like that.
Yeah. Well, I think that about wraps it up.
Indeed.
No real questions so far. Just a lot of jokes from Tom, really. I think everyone else is kind of just stunned by the postings he's put on this chat. So I'm not sure whether to thank him or chastise him for it. But
yeah, I'm not sure. Of course, if you're watching this retrospectively on YouTube, you won't be able to see the profanities, but it's probably for the best.
There's quite a few.
There's quite a few. It's probably for the best that you can't see them.
Yeah, come to think of it.
Anyway.
No, I don't think we're going to read them out, Tom. You're on your own for that one.
It's all good. So, yeah, I guess that concludes this episode. We have been Transatlantic Brews. This has been episode 8. This is TA Brews TV. Signing off. Cheers.
Cheers. Good night and stay classy.
Stay classy.